If you are a beginner in research, you have these days so many resources around you which you can tap to learn. You have so many YouTube channels, you have so many online platforms from where you can easily download papers, read them, understand them, use them for your research. You have your mentors, your supervisors, seniors who are into research. You can talk to them and learn about how to do research. But the question is that so easy? So I'm going to answer this question today for all my friends and all those who are beginning their career in research. They have just enrolled into PhD program. What they need to do. So, the first point is read as much as possible. Yes, it is important to do self study on the topic which you have chosen. The more you will study, the more you will learn and gain knowledge upon that. Let me tell you one thing, that the research topic which you have chosen is as per your interest, and when you will deep dive into it to learn more, there's no one better than you who knows more than you on that thing. Get as many resources as possible, get as many articles, papers as possible, and go through them. Yes, it will take time. There's no shortcut. People sometimes tell you that you can filter out relevant papers by going through their abstract or the conclusion. But I would say that is for someone who has already read around 100 papers, so that you have a brief idea on what is relevant to you and what is not. Just if you go through the abstract and filter out the papers, you might miss on some important information which is there in the papers which you have left out. Second is, while reading the papers, what you should look in for. You should look in for the referencing style. You should look in for the citations which are provided by that author. Are you going to use the same citation style? Sometimes I've seen that people just take the text from somewhere, and whatever form the citation has been there, they do paraphrase that thing, but they use the same citation and referencing style without understanding that what type of referencing they have to mention in their article as per the norms and format of that journal. So every little minute detail is quite important over here. Then you should filter out previous 5 years papers. Look in for 5 years, last 5-year papers. Even if you are doing a PhD thesis, you are writing a research article, search in for relevant papers from last 5 years. Go through review papers, because review papers is one source which provide you ample amount of information in just 15 or 16 pages. It might have 100, more than 100 references. So it's a gist, it's a juice of all those papers which you get to read in just one paper. Review papers are quite important. Then you should look in for the relevant gaps, which is the essence of research. Without identification of the relevant gaps in the literature, you will not be able to move ahead. Once you are able to identify the relevant gaps, then you frame your objectives. To fill the gap, you make objectives. These objectives should be measurable, they should be workable, and you should be able to do them in the prescribed time limit. You have to devise a time scale for yourself. In how much time you want to complete how much part of your study. Devise that plan of work in advance. Then if someone tells you that you just do review of literature and I'll frame your objectives or I'll help you to frame your objectives, I would say, yes, you definitely seek advice from that person. But as I told you earlier, the more you deep dive into review of literature, no one knows better than you. What are the lacunas? What are the limitations of previous studies? What are the gaps? There are future recommendations also mentioned by those papers. You must go in through those future recommendations. If you think you can fulfill those gaps, then you are moving right. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. The studies which have already been done, which have already been conducted, there are different types of gaps. Contextual gaps, methodological gaps. By contextual gaps, I mean what is missing in literature which is important. Methodological gap means someone has worked on a study using different kind of stats and data analysis techniques, and you feel you can do that study in a much better manner using latest tools and techniques and give a better insight into the future prospects coming out from that study. You can give better future recommendations, better suggestions for future researchers. Then you have gaps. Sometimes people address like, this study was done in developed countries and now I am going to do it in a developing country. It can be considered as a gap, but that is not sufficient to justify your study. After the identification of the gaps and framing of your objectives, the next step is to look in for what kind of methodology was used by the previous researchers. What was their research design? Coming to the sampling part, how did they sample the respondents? If it's a survey-based study, which is usually done in tourism and hospitality domain, or it is a qualitative study wherein people have taken certain interviews, worked on certain focus groups, taken their observations. So you have to look in for the methodology adopted by previous researchers. When you will go through some of the papers, you will not understand what is being done over there because you are doing it for the first time. So take it easy, my friend. It will take time for you to understand. And once you are an expert, as I told you, once you have gone through maybe 100 or 150 papers with complete dedication, then you are ready to filter out the relevant papers which are useful for you. You will be so insightful that just by looking at the abstract or the conclusion, you'll be able to judge whether this study is helpful for me or not. So that is something magical which happens when you are devoted towards learning. Next is you make a flow chart of the research design which you want to follow. It should be unique and it should be justifiable so that you give something which is novel to the society. You give some novel understanding to the previous work which was done by the researchers. That is your original contribution. Sometimes researchers have a dilemma that where should we write the research gaps? Where should we write the research questions in our article? Which part of the article should have the objectives? Where should I mention my hypothesis? So, simply I'll tell you, in your introduction part, wherein you state the relevance of your study, the rationale behind your study, the purpose of your study, there in itself, you mention the research gaps in an article. And based on those research gaps, you frame your research questions. That is the introduction part. In literature review, you give the detailed information on what you fetched out, which was relevant for you, and through that you got to know the gaps. Herein, you mention your objectives and you mention your hypothesis as well. Because hypotheses are the predictive statements which help to fulfill your objectives. Third is the methodology section, wherein you first talk about the survey instrument or the data collection tool. How did you frame up this survey questionnaire? Did you take the pre-validated questions from somewhere, or you developed your own questions? In case you are working on a pre-validated scale, then you can do a CFA, that is confirmatory factor analysis. In case you have developed your own scale based on the review of literature, then you need to do EFA, exploratory factor analysis. EFA is done in SPSS and CFA can be done in AMOS. So this was about the instrument, how you developed it. You need to mention the sources from where you took in the questions, you adapted the questions by going in through the work of previous researchers. You have to mention that. How did you measure those questions? Were they measured on a Likert 5-point scale, Likert 7-point scale, or any other scale? How many questions were there? And these questions should supplement your objectives. Out of your objectives, to fulfill your objectives, you should have to frame the questions. Whether it is an open-ended questionnaire where the respondent has the free right to include his or her response as per his or her will, thought process, or it is a closed type questionnaire wherein you provide the pre-stated options and the respondent has to tick on any one of the options. Whether the questions are measured on a continuous scale, ordinal scale, interval scale. So you need to read about all these things to know more. So that once you identify what questions you have framed and you get your questionnaire validated by the experts in your field, that is known as content validity of a questionnaire. Face validity of a questionnaire means how you have framed up your questions. Are they easy to understand? Are you using a simple and concise wording? Is the formatting of your questionnaire clear enough? That is known as face validity of a questionnaire. Content validity is done through experts in your field who will tell you whether your questions are able to fulfill your objectives or not. So you need to get them verified. Once it is pre-validated by the experts, you go in for pilot study or a trial run. So in this pilot study, you take around 30 to 40 respondents and you try to seek their responses. You get their responses and then you do the reliability test of the questionnaire. Yes, you do the reliability analysis, which you must have heard of through Cronbach Alpha or McDonald's Omega. Now these are two different things to do the reliability assessment. I'll stop over here and we'll continue from here. The procedure of doing the methodology section in your article. Otherwise, this video will be quite long. My endeavor is to make you understand in a simple and easy language that how you can pursue research and how you can reach up to your goals. There are several videos available on YouTube, several expert researchers. There are several conferences, seminars happening, online sessions happening, which you can join. But ask yourself, do you actually get something out of that if you are a beginner? They are especially meant for seasoned researchers who know how to do research, or who at least know what are the basic fundamentals of research. But the problem is, most of the times when you enroll into a PhD program, at that point of time, you don't have any direction or you don't have any idea of how to do it because you are doing it for the first time. Yes. And as I told you, it is not a regular study program. It's quite different. It is about enhancement of your wisdom, your knowledge. So, see you next time with some more informative content, and